So we went back to the village, we hung out, and then on my way home to Brooklyn, I had a car. I said, where was that street again? I circled until I found the street. I wrote the number down, gave it to Mario, he gave it to Larry, who gave it to Michael Brody. They went to look at the space. They loved it.
Wow.
All because I wanted to go swimming after midnight.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
All right. Today is Monday, January 30th, 2023. Who are we speaking with?
David DEPINO.
Take us back to the beginning.
Oh, so the beginning for me was 1968. My sister, who's 6 years older than me, used to work in all the clubs because my family was sort of connected to the nightlife in New York City. And I was 15 years old, and my mother said, okay, take him. And she took me in one night to Tamburlaine on 48th Street, Hippopotamus on 63rd Street, and we wound up at the church. And 1 week later, it got closed down and opened up several months later as the Sanctuary in 1969, and I got a job there. So I'm working in clubs since 1969.
How old were you at the time?
15 years old.
Wow.
Believe it or not, I can't believe my mother let me do it, but she trusted me. And I worked behind the bar selling soda and donuts because it was juice when it opened up at Sanctuary. They lost their liquor license. So I've been in all different clubs that whole time.
Your family was in the business. Unpack that.
Well, my Italian family was in the business.
Mm-hmm. Explain that. Like what kind of business? I got you. All right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep moving.
Little Italy.
Yes.
Italian family.
That's all we need to know.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
Let's get into it. The garage. Paradise Garage. What does it mean to you?
Paradise Garage was my college. I didn't go to college. So, people go to college and the world opens up to them. The world truly opened up to me because of Paradise Garage. I started traveling. I started hanging out and partying with all different cultures, not just Italian boys from Mulberry Street or Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. And it educated me. It food-wise, friend-wise, culture-wise, acceptance, everything. It just opened. It was anti-main. Darling, I'm going to open up the world to you. That's what the garage was for me.
How did you discover the garage?
Well, it's a funny story. I was working in a club in Brooklyn, and my friend Mario, another Italian boy who looked just like me, we both had long curly hair. One day I was cleaning the mirror ball in the club, and somebody came in and put their hands over my eyes and said, guess who? I turned around and said, who the hell are you? It was Larry Levan. Larry Levan was dating Mario, and from behind he thought he was putting his hands over Mario's eyes. So he went, oh, I'm so sorry. Mario came over laughing and says, everybody thinks we're each other. That was my first experience meeting Larry. Even though I had gone to Reach Street once or twice, but I didn't know him. And Mario was also a DJ, and they were dating, and Larry was looking for a new space. Reach Street was closing, and Mario was going to be the DJ on Saturday, and Larry was going to be the DJ on Friday. One day we were in the village, me and a whole group of friends, and somebody said, let's walk 3 blocks down Hudson to Carmine Pool. It was like around midnight, and we go over the fence and we could swim. I said, okay, let's go. We walk. It's from Christopher Street to Carmine Street is only like 3-4 blocks, and it's right around the corner from the garage. And we're walking, and suddenly these cop cars go zooming by us, and they turn on Carmine. And we're about 6 people. And we reach the corner of Carmine, and we see the cops all stopped by the gate of the pool. They were probably stopping the kids from climbing over and swimming. So I said, we're not going down that block. So we went to the next block, which was King Street, and made a left to make a left on Varick to walk back to the village. So as we're walking, I said to my friend John, this looks familiar. It was across the street from the women's prison. I said, didn't we come to a party here once? He said, yeah, wasn't Natalie Cole singing in this place? And we look at it, and on the wall it says for rent. I said, oh, Mario and Larry are looking for a club. So we went back to the village, we hung out, and then on my way home to Brooklyn, I had a car. I said, where was that street again? I circled until I found the street. I wrote the number down, gave it to Mario, he gave it to Larry, who gave it to Michael Brody. They went to look at the space. They loved it.
Wow.
All because I wanted to go swimming after midnight.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
I mean, I'm sure they would have found the space somewhere. They may have even have found that space. But it was cute that I was a small... So when I told Larry, I gave the number to Mario, he was like, oh, wow. And then we were talking one day, and I told him I worked at Sanctuary with Francis Grasso. I worked at Townhouse with Michael Capella. I worked at this other place, I can't remember the name of it, with Frankie Knuckle. He went, oh, my God, you've been everywhere. And we became fast friends on our own. He had broke up with Mario. And then I started going to the garage constantly. And then one day he said, why don't you work the door to the booth? Because I was always showing the person at the door who to let in, who to let out. Because every week Larry had another boy at the door that was cute. And I did it. And that started me working at the garage.
Wow. What year was this?
This was probably, I started probably working at the garage probably 79. But I was always there from the beginning.
Got it.
Not every week, but you know.
Describe the Paradise Garage for somebody that's never been there.
You can't. You really can't. Because all the answers are cliche. Oh, it was a democracy. It was open. It was my church. You really can't explain it. You had to experience it. You really had to experience it. Because even thinking back on the nights that were not crowded, on the nights that Larry was not into it, I'd go back in time and take one of those nights. Because that's how good it was even when it wasn't good. Compared to the nights it was... I mean, there were nights that you just couldn't have believed what you just went through. What may be a great show, or Larry was just so on the money. Almost every record you thought of in your head he played. And you said, is this guy in my head? You know, it was just amazing. And
do you have a vivid memory of a performance?
So many. For me, I'm the biggest Patti LaBelle fan, and the night Patti LaBelle performed, for me, was everything. I couldn't believe Patti LaBelle was on the Paradise Garage stage. And we had Whitney Houston, but she was nobody yet. Her record didn't even hit the radio until the weekend after the Garage. But Michael Brody saw her at upstairs, at the downstairs, or Bottom Line, one of those little village clubs, and took Larry and I the next week before she left the gig to see her, and we couldn't believe what we were hearing. And it was like, she's going to be huge. And like Michael said, we have to have her at the Garage. And we had Stephanie Mill. We had so many. Chaka Khan's dress ripping off because it got caught on something, and she was singing Tearing It Up, and she ran and the dress tore off while she's going, tearing it up, and the dress tore off. So everybody thought it was part of the show. Wow. It didn't tear off, it teared open. Yeah. And so it was just like...
Wow. And then talk to us about, compare and contrast the Garage to other clubs at that era. What made the Garage unique or special?
Because it was new, it was creative, it was... Let's put it this way. Michael Brody had a bank book for the sound and lights. You know, which didn't have to do with his bank account for the club. It had its own, it was its own thing, sound and lights. Lights were a little part of it because Larry only wanted lights that enhanced your dancing, not lights like studio you went and watch. Oh, look at those are moving. Oh, look at the moon. And that was fabulous and glitzy. Larry wanted lighting that enhanced your dancing. So, but my point is there was a bank book. Sound was so important. The party was so important. After Garage, I was so spoiled playing. My first time I ever played records was at the Garage.
Tell us about that.
I'll go in a second. But so when I went to work at other places, I had bosses that looked at the tape on the register. My bar's not doing that good. Or how many people, why are you playing that record? Michael Brody didn't do none of that. He was 100, he danced all night. He was 100%, the party was number one. So I was spoiled. And didn't know I was spoiled until I worked for other people. Then I said, oh my God, I had it so good. We had it so good. The Garage was so good. That's how I realized the Garage was more than just another great club. But I worked at Sanctuary, which was a great club. You know, I worked at Boathouse, which was a great club. I worked at, so many, I can't even begin. But my first time playing at the Garage was, Larry was getting very busy in the studio. And sometimes he'd be in the studio on a Friday. And he was supposed to be out by 11, but you know, you get caught up in the studio. And 5 to 12, the DJ booth had its own phone. So he'd call the booth and go, I'm going to be late. Put a reel on. Nobody showed up at the Garage till 2. So, all right, Larry, I'll put a reel on. He called back at 1. I'm still a little late. I'll be there by 1:30. I said, the reel is ending. He said, put a record on and put another reel on. So I put a record on, I put another reel on. And then that reel emptied and suddenly he's still not there. So I had to put another record on and then another record on. And the dance floor maybe might have had 50 people, 70 people. They all knew me because I worked at the Garage from the beginning. So nobody looked at me like, who the hell is that? Is that guy supposed to be replacing Larry? So I never had anybody not wanting me there. You know what I'm saying? So I never had that pushback from the crowd. They accepted me. And I put a record here and there. And then I started to work for Judy Weinstein at For the Record. So I would bring Larry his new records and I'd say, well, he's not here. Let me put on the new records. This way, when he decides which one he likes, they have already heard it once or so. It'll, you know, it's a little breaking the ice. I didn't touch none of the records I knew he was going to want to play. Respectful. You're Larry. I'm not. You know. And so that's what I did. And then he'd come in, and sometimes he'd come in and he'd goof around a little in the booth and let me keep going. And he would go, he'd give me thumbs up if he liked the new song, thumbs down. And if he went like this, it was a maybe. He had to hear it and listen to the versions that were on the 12-inch. So we had a good, you know, relationship with each other that way. And we were best friends. So I accidentally became a DJ because I was a hair cutter.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Wow. Wow. Tell us about the sound at the Garage.
Oh, it was everything. It used to drive Michael Brody crazy.
Why?
Because Richard Long would come to the Garage with a new piece of equipment at 9, 10 o'clock and plug it in because he had to hear it, what this new piece would do. And he would leave it there for a week or so for Larry to work it to see if it's worthwhile manufacturing it. And sometimes Richard would bring people. He brought this royal, I don't think it was a prince or anything, but part of the royal family of Dubai or Saudi Arabia, one of those countries, billionaire, wanted to open up a club. He brought people from Venezuela. He brought people from Colombia. He brought people from Paris. The Garage was the showroom for Richard's sound. And every new piece of equipment, Larry would go, I love it, I have to have it. And Michael would go, that's several $1,000s. I need to put a sink in the kitchen and bring plumbing from one side of the building to the other. That's going to cost me thousands. But Michael, I have to have this. He said, Larry, we need a sink. But Michael, I have to have it. Larry got it. Mm. And every time Richard came with a little suitcase, Michael Brody looked at him and went, no! What are you bringing him? And Richard would look at him and go, this is going to make the party. And Michael Brody would go, oh. You know.
Wow.
But Larry had every new thing. Larry had every little gadget, like I said, there were always speakers blown every week. And he said, if you don't blow a speaker, it wasn't a good party.
Wow.
I said, Larry, you just made up that little philosophy because you blew speakers. Mm-hmm. If you don't blow a speaker, it's not a good party. You made that up to cover yourself. Mm-hmm. He went, no. If the excitement in the room, you know, the room gets hot and sweaty, speakers can't take it when they're being pushed, when they get moist. Mm-hmm. Oh, Larry.
Wow.
But have you been to the garage?
No. I was too young.
Too young. You're a baby.
Yeah. But I heard about it for forever. Tell us about, before I came, you talked about checking the sound for Larry, tell us that story again about, like, you know, putting your head in the speaker. And
Larry would come in and he would start to, Richard had, every Friday and Saturday before the club, Richard came with his little, I don't know what it was called, a meter for pink noise or white noise, whatever, and he put it on, and he put a thing on that went sss, and he'd measure everything as he walked around, and he'd go up and tweak the amplifiers, because throughout the night, as the room got more crowded, more hot, because there was no air conditioning and the dance floor used to become a sauna, Larry would tweak the sound. So it had to be EQ'd each and every weekend, each night. Because Richard would get it sounding perfect for Friday, but by the time Larry played with it all night long, you put it on the next day when the room had calmed down and was cool, and it was like, oh. Richard had to come in and re-EQ it. Larry had to EQ it throughout the night so it always sounded good, and Larry's ear was incredible. So he would go, okay, I just did that stack, listen to see. And I put my head in the bass bottom, and he'd go, boom! And I go, oh. Next speaker, is it on? Boom! I go, oh. That's why now I need hearing aids and have to put my telephone on speaker, because I can't. And my father used to say, be true to your ears and teeth, and they'll be true to you. My teeth are still good, but the hearing, no. But I wouldn't change a thing.
What's the biggest misconception about Larry?
So many. Larry came from the school of David Mancuso, where sound and music selection was everything. Larry didn't play a record because it was happening. He played a record because he liked it. And he wanted to turn you on to it, whether it was pop, rock. He played some rock things, reggae, whatever Larry felt. He said, you're coming to my house party. You're going to dance or not to my selection. And people think he wasn't really a technical good DJ. There were nights he was into mixing and he mixed. And there were nights he just popped everything in, you know, whatever his mood was. And, you know, some other DJs, you don't hear it much from people. You hear it from other DJs and go, well, Larry wasn't all that good. He had the garage. No, he made the garage. He made the garage what it was, and at one point the garage became so popular it made Larry more than Larry. So it was a perfect storm. But it still took Larry to make the garage. You know, it was his conception, it was his ideas. It was his dream, along with Michael Brody, who made it possible.
Would the garage work today?
I ask that question all the time. People say to me, oh, if Michael Brody didn't pass, if Larry was still alive, I don't know. Larry was progressive. Would he have gotten into a little bit of the, I don't even know if you call it techno anymore, or EDM, whatever. I think Larry would have found the best of what was happening musically and played it. He didn't shy away from anything. I do. I shy away. If I put a record on and I see the dance floor like standing still, I panic. And Larry used to tell me, don't. I said, go, but you're Larry Levan, I'm not. I never had that kind of confidence. He had more confidence in me than I had in myself, which helped me. I know I always wanted to make him proud because he put me at the turntables of his baby and said, do it for me, with me, do it. And he trusted me, so I always wanted to make him go, good job, or proud of the fact that he gave me that opportunity. But the second he came in, it was like, take over, I want to go dance. You know, I enjoyed making them dance, but where's my dance? You know, I was selfish.
Before you started working at the garage, walk us through a typical night if you were going to go out. Like, what time would you go out? What would you wear?
Well, garage, Sanctuary, when I started working there, opened at midnight.
Okay.
And it went till noon. So, but that was only one night a week, Saturday. Then when I started working at the clubs, they were all basically 9 to 4. So I was always out at 8, 9 o'clock. I would leave my house in Brooklyn, get on the train around 8 o'clock to be in Manhattan by 9. Garage was again now the first after-hour club. Again, that opened at midnight. And when you're young, you don't care. You'll get on the train at any time.
Compare and contrast the crowd and the vibe at Sanctuary versus the garage.
Sanctuary was, oh, don't forget that was 1969. And for some reason, there was a big population of gypsies. The gypsy boys. They were beautiful looking. Long shaggy hair. Long hair shag was in at the time. And like, they always had this little cunning about them. And in 1969 and 70, 71, a big part of New York was pimps. So there was always a little corner or two with the pimps in their mink coats, mink hats, big diamond rings, with their double park, beefed up Cadillacs outside. It was a wild scene, especially to a young 15-year-old Italian boy from Brooklyn. It was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, look at her. Is that a girl? Is that not a girl? You know, my first transgender. I was selling donuts and she said, can I have a donut and a soda? And I said, yeah, that'll be whatever it was. I think the soda was $1, the donuts were 35 cents. And they were flirting with me, maybe because I was young. And after I gave her her change, she said, thank you. And I never met a transgender before. And I thought it was fabulous. And she laughed and her other two friends laughed. And so I made friends behind. It was just, and then the garage was the cherry. The garage opened me up. I mean, Sanctuary opened me up to different people, you know. But I got to go to different countries because of the garage. I became a DJ and I started traveling.
Really?
My first traveling experience was 3 months in India.
What?
India. I never even flew to Florida or Connecticut. I never even drove to Connecticut. My first experience out of Brooklyn was India.
Wow.
For 3 months, I opened up 2 clubs in India for Richard Long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a cultural shock.
What was that like for a kid from Brooklyn going to India and living there for 3 months?
3 months. I mean, I lived in a beautiful hotel in a beautiful suite. But second you went outside, you know, you had your heart melted. There were homeless all over the place in bad shape, and so sweet, so nice, you know. It just, monkeys come up and try to rip your pocket off to get your money, or right there, there's goats on the street, cows stopped in the middle of the road and traffic stopped because the cow is there, and cow is sacred. So you can't beep your horn at the cow for it to move. You have to wait, and traffic could be backed up for a mile waiting for that cow to decide to walk. I said, it's a cow, just slap it on the button. They went, oh. Wow. I played Tell Me If You're Dreaming. A man likes milk, so he owns 1,000,000 cows, and they all went, oh.
So tell us about your DJ career.
Oh.
After India.
After India, then I started getting other gigs, and then I got Tracks.
Tell us about everyone. When I tell people that I want to interview you, everyone talks about your era at Tracks.
Well, my friend Freddie Taylor owned a one-stop record. I don't know what still to this day what that means. Record little thing. She used to work at the Loft and was part of the record pool. She went, David, there's a club called Tracks. They're looking for a DJ to do a night. I said, it's a white club that plays all that Euro white nyanya music. We used to call it nyanya music. She went, yeah, but you know, you could do your own thing. Up until then, I had a job here and there at area, at the garage. I was just getting my feet wet on my own. Other than an hour or two starting a night for Larry, I was finally doing 1 or 2 nights, a full night. I did a full night at area maybe 2 or 3 times. When Larry was in Brazil on vacation, I played the garage a full night 1 or 2 times. So I said, okay, I'll talk to them. I went there and met them, and they said, we'll give you a Tuesday. I said, Tuesday? And I looked at the place, it was huge. I said, Tuesday, what do you, yeah, give it a try. So he said, well, we'll do it on Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday. We'll make it a celebration. I said, okay. They said, we'll make you flyers, you'll hand them out. I said, I will not hand out a flyer at the garage. They said, well, I mean, that was the whole reason. And I said, I won't do it. I'm sorry. They said, all right, let's see what happens. So I played Fat Tuesday. All my friends from the club came. I might have had maybe 40 people there, but it was very big Tracks. So I said, well, that was it. I think they gave me like $50. And he said, well, you know what? We'll give you 3 more. We'll make it a month. I said, okay. The next week I might have had maybe 75 people, another 25 people. I said, can you make me little business cards that say complimentary entrance, David DEPINO? And I took those, they made me like 1,000 of them. I went to Midtown. I went everywhere in the streets. Every handsome guy I gave a card to. Every pretty girl I gave a card to. The next week I had maybe 250 people, but they were gorgeous. I mean, I gave it to beauty Tracks. Let's be honest. And the last week I had maybe 300 and something people. And they said, let's keep going. And inside of 2 months I had 2,000 people.
Holy shit.
And I remember the night Larry came and he said, David, I'm so proud of you. You did this on your own. I said, I never handed a flyer and I never promoted it. He said, I know. He said, we looked. We searched the floor. Michael Brody was looking. And I laughed. I said, he said, you did it on your own. You pat yourself on the back and be proud of yourself. And that went on for 5 years. And then when Garage closed, I added Friday. They wouldn't give me Saturday. Even though Saturday really wasn't happening at Tracks, they still wouldn't give me Saturday. So I did Friday. And that was another 2,000-3,000 people. So I was doing 6,000 people a week. Now people give their eye teeth for that. But back then, you know, it was just a good crowded night.
Wow. And that was what time?
That opened at 8. And it was free from 8 till 9. And then it went to 4 in the morning, but I used to sometimes push it till 6. And still to this day, I run into people on the street that go, oh my God, David DEPINO, I haven't seen you so many years. Oh, how are you? Blah, 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 blah. And they say to me, I never kept a job because I never got to work on Wednesday. I never got to work on Wednesday. After a while, I got fired everywhere.
Wow. Do you have photos from that era and flyers from the Tracks?
Yeah. You know what? You don't think. I have some flyers around here and there, but you know who has flyers? Danny Crivet. Because he was my assistant, not my assistant. When they said we're going to have a second floor, we could pipe the music up or have another DJ, I recommended Danny. So we worked together all those years. And then when I went to Sound Factory Bar, Danny also came along and worked with me. We've had between 5 and 5. We had like a 10-year work together relationship, Danny Privet and me.
Wow.
My brother, Danny. Great DJ.
At Tracks, how would you program the night?
Again, I got very used to, the first hour was free, so used to get really a good crowd immediately. Well, I get there like about 10 to 8 to unpack my records, and there was already a line down the block. You know, they wanted to get in there free, and in their suits and stuff, coming from work, straight from work. And they would leave like around 10 or 11, and I get another whole crowd. So it changed throughout the night, so I could play a record 2 and 3 times in the night if I wanted to. But I also used to start out with my nude stuff, which was always about 8 or 10 pieces for the week, and I played them. And I try to play them like before they got packed. Again, to let them say, all right, I heard this, or, you know. And the only thing I did at Tracks that I didn't do at Garage, really, I broke it down to really slow music. Like that when Stephanie Mills is I Feel It All Over, what was the name of that song?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That really spalled.
Yeah.
I used to play that, and the girls would all dance with each other, the females, and some of the guys would dance with each other, and I'd get applause for being brave. That was about as brave as I ever got. But I never would do that at the Garage. I would never like, Larry didn't do that kind of thing. That's about the only thing probably Larry didn't do was play a ballad, you know. And I hit them hard at Tracks.
Explain that.
Well, I knew the people that came early were going to go home like around 11.
Yeah.
Because they had jobs.
Yeah.
So like 10 o'clock for like an hour before they started to leave, I pumped them 10, 15, 20 records in a row hard, and to the point where the tie would come off, the buttons were open, and the jacket came off, the shirt came out of the pants, and their shirt was dripping wet, and they'd give me the finger from the dance floor because they were drenched, and then I would throw kisses to them. And then I had this record, Drink on Me. Do you remember that record?
Yes.
Come and have a little drink on me, and I'd take a handful of drink tickets and throw them from the booth because I was one level up. And they'd all run and push each other out of the way to get a drink. Because the drink there was iced tea, was the big drink. And it was expensive. And they used to drink 2 of them and be leaving like this. I used to go, get home safe. They used to go, I'll get home when I get home. I used to go, oh my God. My legs are killing me. Call me a cab. I used to go, you're a cab. It was wonderful Tracks.
Wow. And then it closed?
Yeah.
Why
the owner, Marty was very heavy. Big guy. And he had gastric bypass surgery. And he lost like a couple of 100 pounds. And he had there were 5 tracks. Atlanta, DC, New York, I don't remember the other ones. Atlanta, DC, New York, I don't remember. There were 5, I know there were 5. And he started closing them. He kept Washington open a couple of years after my Tracks closed. He just was getting older. He was getting his health back. He wanted to do more things with his family. He didn't want to keep flying to different tracks all the time to do books and stuff. And that was it. And I remember they had a 20-year lease, and there were 10 years left on the lease, and he asked me if I wanted to buy it. For $100,000, I could have bought everything in there, sound, lights, everything, and had given the 10 years left on the lease. The rent, I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't that much. I just didn't have $100,000. And I tried to raise it. And everybody's like, you know.
Wow.
I went to Michael Brody. He was like, no, I'm busy enough with Garage. I don't need another space. Judy Weinstein for the record. I said you could put Frankie Knuckles in one night. You could put David Morales in one night. I already have 2 nights going. But imagine.
Wow. Wow.
$100,000 was still a lot
Still a lot.
back then, but
back then it was probably like to today's dollars probably a few million, but still it's a lot to raise.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could have been a contender.
Tell us about the perfect DJ booth for you.
Oh, garage.
Explain it. Describe it.
Well, the console was perfect. It was perfect height, and
How high was it?
I don't remember the exact measurements, but it was recorded because that was the one that he wound up building everywhere for everybody, and it also had with a little switch, electronic. It went up and down. Some people like to play the mixer like this. Some people like to play, so it went up and down. It adjusted for you. It had the space built in for the reel-to-reel. There were no CD players or anything at the time. It was just turntables. And all your equipment fit, your crossovers, your whatever gadgets. Larry had 100 of them. And then Larry also had, the light guy was right next to him, and Larry had a master light board that was on a track. He slid it to the light man when he wanted him to do it all. And when he wasn't feeling the light man or he was in the mood, he brought the piece over, hit the switch, which took over. The light guy could do nothing. Larry had all control. It was about yay big and had all different buttons. And he programmed them throughout the night to do whatever he wanted. And he had a foot pedal of sunlight. He'd step on the foot pedal and the room got so bright you almost had to go like that. And he'd do that. And he controlled the confetti cannon. Larry controlled everything. The booth was a cockpit.
Wow.
And like I said, it had its own, it had everything. You know, and I didn't know. I thought all places had everything. And it was a big reality check. You know, Tracks was had everything, but not that quality. And it had a manager or two that couldn't stand my music. Of course, you know, they liked the nya. But they dealt with it because my 2 nights paid the bills. My 2 nights at Tracks paid the monthly bills.
Wow.
And Marty told me that too.
Describe the crowd that came to Tracks. Like, who was...
A lot of the houses.
Really?
If you ever know from New York, seen the House of... I've been to the House of Xtravaganza. It was the Extravaganzas, the Duprees, the La Beiges. All the houses came. The Village Kids came. It was a different... And I'd say maybe 30% of the garage came. Because like I said, it was a Tuesday. So if you worked, Tuesday wasn't easy for you. And if you did come, like the garage kids that did come, that had, or even the ball kids that came that had jobs had to go home. That's why when they said, well, let's open at 10, I said, no, let's keep it 8. I knew those kids would come and I'll let them really dance for 3 hours. They'll go home happy. And it was a weekday. And I changed New York. Nobody, you know, other than Better Days or something with a weekday party that was maybe 150, 200 people, suddenly I had to fill a room with 2,000, 2,500 people on a Tuesday. And I did it.
Wow.
I did it. And, you know, I'm not bragging, but I'm proud of myself for doing it.
Absolutely. What years was that? Do you remember?
It closed in 90. It closed in 90, so it was 5 years. So 85, 86, 87, 88, or 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. It was right around then. So it was like the last year and a half of the garage.
Tell us about playing with Frankie Knuckles.
I didn't really play with Frankie. Well, we did at what was it? Sound Factory. I was playing at Red Zone with Dave Morales.
Wait, rewind. Tell us that story.
I'm everywhere. You know, there's in Forrest Gump, every time they showed a picture of a famous scene, he was there in the background. So was I. I don't know how. I'm the Forrest Gump of DJ. Somebody contacted me about 2 years ago on Facebook and said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said yes. He said, "Who are you?" I was laughing so hard I almost peed myself. "Who are you?" I said, what do you mean, David? You just contacted me. He said, but who are you? Every time I see a picture of something, you're in it. Who are you? I mean, really, what do you do? I said I was a DJ. I worked at these clubs. And the whole time I'm typing, tears are dripping on my iPad. I'm laughing so much. Who are you? And I said, he says, every time I see a picture of Frankie Knuckles somewhere, there you are. I see a picture of Larry in the booth with Jeffrey Osborne or Pat, there you are. I see, he said, you're everywhere. Do you put yourself in the pictures? I said, no, I really was there. But so I was playing at Red Zone with Dave Morales on Fridays and or Saturdays, whatever it was. And I got a job to go down to Miami and open this new club called Downtown. And I was like, do I want to move to Miami? I knew the people. It was a good offer. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So
do you remember the offer?
The offer, money-wise and
Yeah.
everything. They were going to give me a house to live in, pay me. When I got down there, the Miami DJs were not happy that they brought a New York DJ to play when the job should have went to one of them. And I was very good friends with one because he used to be in the record pool here and then moved back home to Miami. And when I went to see him and everything, he was very cold to me. And I said, why are you being so cold to me? He said, not everybody's happy with you. I said, I don't know nobody. Yeah, but it should have been a Miami DJ. I said, I can understand that. I don't know why they're asking me, but I just simply took a job. The club opened. The club opened, it wasn't successful. I moved back home. So when I moved back home, Phil Smith offered me, because at that time him and Junior split from Sound Factory, and Junior went uptown to Arena or World. Junior went somewhere, and he offered me the job. But he didn't know I was coming home, and he had offered the job to Frankie. But Frankie was traveling a lot, so what they did was 1 week was Frankie, 1 week was me, 1 week was Frankie, 1 week was me, which confused everybody. You know, people who enjoyed Frankie came back the next week and it was me, and it was like, the music's different. And the people who enjoyed me came back the next week and said, the music's different. You know, and not that I'm better than Frankie or Frankie was better than me. We were a little different. Frankie's a lot more musical than I ever was. You know, Frankie's ear was very sophisticated. Me, I was just give it to you. Frankie's pretty and it just confused people. And it sort of made little groups, my little extravaganzas, and they were like anti-Frankie for a second. His little group, knuckleheads, were anti-me. And it made it uncomfortable. And then they begged me to come back to Florida. So I went back to Florida and gave up Sound Factory. Wow. And then there were rumors that Phil was going to bring Junior back. So I don't remember the whole outcome of it all. But I left. But Frankie and I never made it come in between us. It didn't last long. It was only several months. But I used to go and stand there while Frankie played, and I said, he used to go, oh, you're out. I said, I'm here to learn. Stop playing. I'm here to learn. You know, I'm watching, I'm learning, I'm sponging off of you, Frankie. We would laugh. I mean, I know Frankie before I knew Larry.
What?
Yeah. That's another funny story. This guy from Mulberry Street, where I was from, named Johnny, opened up this club in Manhattan in this building on the 4th floor. I can't remember the name of it. The DJ booth was a rocket ship, and the DJ was upstairs. And when I went there to set up the coat room, because I was going to do the coat room, I said to him, who's the DJ? And he said, Frankie Knuckles. I said, I never heard of him. I don't know who that is. I said, you should have got Michael Capello. I was a big Michael Capello fan. And I was like, Michael Capello is the best. He's fabulous and everything.
Tell people who Michael Capello is.
Michael Capello was a DJ that played at Limelight. He played at Talent House. He played at Sanctuary with Francis. He was a great DJ. Another Italian boy from Brooklyn. Us Italian boys from Brooklyn stick together. I hear somebody behind me say, I love Michael Capello too. He's a great DJ. And I turned around and said, yes, tell them, isn't he? And he said, yes. I said, okay. He said, what's your name? I said, David. I said, what's your name? And he said, Frankie Knuckles. If I could have just taken my words back. And I said, Frankie, it's no knock on you. I don't know you. I've never heard you. I know Michael. I danced to Michael for a couple of years. He's fabulous. And he said, I hope you enjoy me too. And of course, Frankie Knuckles is Frankie Knuckles. He was, you know. At the end of that night, I went over to him and I was like, I apologize, Frankie Knuckles. I apologize. You know.
So, David Morales.
David Morales was a young DJ boy who came to the record pool to try to get in. And the record pool was full.
This is for the record?
For the record.
Okay.
And he brought a little cassette, listened to my music. I want to be in this pool. I have to get into this pool. Every big DJ's in this pool. I said, I'll talk to Judy. She was in California at the time. So when she came home, what went on at the play, I said, well, this young boy showed up. He works in this club in Brooklyn. He wants to get into the pool. I gave her his phone number. She says, well, we really don't have any spaces. I said, I know, I told them that. She went, okay, and she put the number aside. David was very persistent. He came by every week, is there a space, is there a space? So suddenly there was a space. So I said, I'll tell her, you know, you're still interested. She says, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave it open. Brooklyn. I said, don't be a Brooklyn snob. She went, I'm not a Brooklyn snob. I lived right there. I grew up there. She says, but, you know, let's see. I went to Ozone Lake to hear him, and he was terrific. So I came home. I came to work that Monday because I went on the Saturday. And I said, Judy, this boy is good. He's going to be somebody. Oh, you just think he's cute and you're hot for him. I said, yes, but he's terrific. Then Dave and I became friendly. And I fought to get him in the record pool. I said, Judy, get him in this record pool or I'm quitting. She went and said, you really think he's that good? I said, yes. So she hired him. Not hired him, gave him a spot at the record pool. So Dave and I stayed good friends that whole time. And then I started playing. He was playing. Then he was at the Red Zone. And then they needed another DJ. He recommended me. And I started working with him at the Red Zone. And that's, again, accidentally, I fell into everything.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And then, you know, a natural progression to DJs that go in the studio and start making music. I wasn't good at that. I made a few records. I knew my limits. I tell everybody, I was never supposed to be a DJ to begin with. So you want to put me in a studio to make music? I don't play instrument music. I can't tell the difference between a real guitar and a synthesizer. So, you know, I know it's a natural pathway. Go in the studio, make music. That's not me.
Speaking of which, talk us through the records you have on the wall.
Oh. That one was given to us at the garage. Just given to the garage, basically, for playing New Shoes. And it was in the office, and Michael Brody was fighting with Larry. What else is new? Mm-hmm. And just said, here, you take it. And he handed it to me, and I said, when I go to Larry's house, I'll bring it. Mm-hmm. And I told Larry, I said, I have a gold record that was given to the garage. He says, what, does it say Larry Levan on it? I said, no, it says Paradise Garage. He says, I don't want it.
Wow.
So that's why I have that one. Mm-hmm. This one was given to me because I was the first one to play Superwoman at Tracks. So Warner Brothers gave DJs that broke the record. And Madonna was given to me, again, for playing Madonna at Tracks. And helping Madonna find Jose and Louis, the House of Xtravaganza, to go on tour with her as her dancers.
What?
So.
Tell us that story.
Again. I was Tracks became so popular on Tuesday. I had this little group of hairdressers that worked at this hair salon that would come, and they'd come up to the booth and say hello to me, and I'd say hello to them, and they'd go down and dance, and they would tell everybody they knew, and then one day they brought Debbie Meza, and she became a Tracks person and friendly, and then the next week Irene Cara came, and then what was his name that played Leroy? I can't think of his name right now. Also on Fame. Mm-hmm. He would come. And then Madonna did the Vogue record. She was getting ready to start her tour and she needed Vogue dancers. So the hairdressers told Louis Extravaganza that we got to get some of the Extravaganza voguers to perform for Madonna. How? So when the hairdressers came, we told them we need to get in touch with Madonna. We have Vogue dancers for her. They told Debbie. Debbie told Madonna. Madonna called to want to see them perform. So I set it up to come to Tracks in the afternoon. So I went to Tracks in the afternoon one day. A limousine pulls up. Madonna gets out. I had like maybe 15, 20 kids there. And I stopped putting on all the songs that they vogued to on Tuesday. She went, I don't want to hear my song. Play. And matter of fact, I played Karen Young and she went, that's my favorite song. So she stood right with me in the booth and I put on a couple battle songs and the Gansers were battling everybody and she was going crazy. And she hired them right on the spot. And they went on a two or 3 year world tour with her.
Wow.
Again.
Wow, you are like Forrest Gump.
the Pied Piper of nonsense.
Tell us about For the Record Pool. What was that?
Okay. Here we go again. I was a hair cutter. And I would work Friday and Saturday at the garage at the door, but then have to go straight to work on Saturday from the garage. It closed at 10. I'd leave at 9, go all the way to Queens to the salon, and be cutting hair. But when you're young, you have the energy. So I was on vacation. I had a 2-week vacation, and I'm in the booth, and Judy came over to me and said, I fired Kenny. I said, why? She went, whatever. She went, I fired Kenny. I'm stuck. I have to hire somebody. Would you help me at the record pool? I know you're on vacation, but just a couple of days until I hire somebody. I said, okay. I went to the record pool that Monday, because obviously it was Saturday, she asked me. And I worked that whole week. It was the first week of my vacation. And I liked it. And she went, why don't you do this? I said, I have a job. She went, oh, please. I quit my haircutting job and went to work for her full-time at the record pool. Again, an accident.
Wow. And tell people what a record pool is.
A record pool was something David Mancuso created. People would go to DJs would go up to the record companies during the week, and they had to go all different ones to get free product. So Dave Mancuso came up with an idea that why don't I get the record companies to send the music here, and I build little bins, and you just pay dues to keep it running because I have to pay somebody a salary to do this, 5 days a week. And that created New York Record Pool. And Mel Sharon helped David. He paid to have the little bins built. And I think David had maybe 20, 25 DJs, and Judy Weinstein ran it. And when David was getting tired of it, it was getting ready to close, and Judy decided to go on her own and open it for the record.
Wow.
And it grew from 25 to 50. I think the most we had was 125 DJs. And she had all the number one DJs in New York.
Give us some examples so we're proud of people.
Well, she had T. Scott, Larry Patterson, Larry Levan. She had Robbie Leslie, Sharon White, Howard Merritt, Roy Thode, the White World, the Black World. And she had all the mobile DJs. She had, all of them, everybody. Jelly Bean. I'm trying to think right now. My brain is like, and she had a lot of power. And then from there, she started booking the shows at the garage. So Judy's name got bigger and bigger, and you know, and that also contributed to the power of the garage. You know.
Wow, I'm still processing.
It was a whole little network between Frankie Crocker being there weekly and listening to things Larry was playing, and then go on them immediately on Monday. You know, there was some things Larry would have an acetate to, and Frankie would say, I have to have that. And Larry would say, let me just play it one more week. And then the next week, Frankie came and went, all right, the week is up. I need that. And Larry would like, okay. And then for about a week, the radio and Larry would still be playing the same record, then Larry stopped. Larry never wanted to be playing what the radio was playing. So once it became big on the radio, Larry sort of faded it out. You know.
Describe your...
But Larry got known as breaking music because of Frankie. So everybody, there was a line sometimes coming up that staircase of every record promoter with a little bag of records under their wrists, you know. And like somebody trying to give me a job. I have several iPads and phones.
Gotcha.
So they're all ringing all around you.
Gotcha.
So, like I said, it was a perfect storm.
Describe your friendship relationship with David Mancuso. How did you guys meet?
David Mancuso. There was a little moment of time when Larry and I had a big fight, and I quit. And it was Saturday night, and I was at the Loft. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm standing behind the booth, and David's playing. He turns around and smiles and goes, gives me a wink, and then turns around, and then turns around again, and looks at his watch. And I just smiled, and he turned around. And then when he came to get a record, he said, what are you doing here at this time? I said, I'm not working at the garage anymore, I quit. And then he turned around, he kept playing a couple records. Then he turned around and with this little devilish smile and said, you want a job? And I said, oh, here we go. He's gonna offer me a job to be shady to Larry. They were always shady to each other, fun, you know. And I'm gonna be in the middle. So I was ready to say no, and then I said, but you have to pay rent next month. And you have no job. Will you go right back to the garage next week? This was a pretty big fight. You're gonna stay out of the garage at least a month. So I didn't know what to do. So then David turned around again and continued playing records. Then like about 10 o'clock in the morning, he said the offer is good for 5 more minutes. So I said, okay. So I took the job at the Loft. The next week, a couple of my friends didn't go to the garage. They came to hang out with me at the Loft. And about 10 o'clock in the morning, Larry walks in. And I'm sitting in the front. Me, Judy Weinstein, my friend Diane, Shamako, everyone who would be in the booth with Larry at the garage wasn't. They were with me. And Larry walked in like, I'm here. And so everybody in his face just dropped. And I said, oh God. I didn't, you know. And he walked by and went, DEPINO. And I went, Levan. And then like about a month later we made up, and David saw me and Larry together, and he said, so I guess you're gonna go back to garage. I said, that is my home. He said, okay.
Wow.
And then I had another fight about a year and a half later, again with Larry, and quit. And when I was at the Loft, he went, I'm not offering you a job. I said, I'm good.
Wow.
So David and I got along good. One day in the afternoon, I was there during it was like about 102 degrees. It was so hot. And he said, it was me, David, and David Rodriguez. So he said, look at us, we're in 3D. So he said, let's go to the corner bar and get ourselves a drink. So we went to the corner bar in the afternoon. They knew him. We walked in, and he said, "We'll have 3 frozen daiquiris, Myers rum." I never had a daiquiri before. It's frozen. I didn't know. It came, and I took a big swiggle, and I got brain freeze. And I took it, and I went, "Oh!" And David laughed so hard, he spit the drink out. I never saw David laugh. In the years and years I knew him, I never saw David laugh. Never a belly laugh that he spit the... He got so much fun out of my pain. And I said, "Oh my God. Oh. I'm screaming. Everybody in the bar's looking at me. I couldn't believe what happened to me. I never had a frozen drink while I was sweated. The pain was incredible. And David said, "I haven't laughed like that in years." I said, "Obviously, because I never saw you laugh like that before." So we had a good relationship.
Wow. Tell us about Area.
Area was an interesting little club. It was, it had an artistic, because when it was Area, it was very artistic. They had those windows that they would put display of people's concepts of maybe somebody pressing a shirt dressed as Lucille Ball, you know, one window, another window, something, you know, and it got a downtown artsy group of people. It got a white kind of Soho crowd. It got the young black musicians, jazz. It was just a different kind of mixture of people than I was used to. Area was a really good club. And it was bright. It wasn't dark. It wasn't dancey club, mirror ball. It was always very bright and glittery. So was Studio. Studio was also very bright. Like you never had to go, "Is that so-and-so? I can't really see." Because the garage was dark. Mirror ball, moody. Like, you know, if you were dancing crazy, you didn't care because you didn't think anybody could see you. You didn't care if they saw you. Area, Studio were like, you know, "I'm not going to dance crazy because I don't want to wrinkle my shirt." You know, it was a little more, they were dancing, they were into it, but a little more maintained, in my opinion. I loved Area. It was interesting. Larry liked it too.
And you DJed there as well?
I DJed there, I think it was 6 times. And then it closed. And then it opened up as something else, and then that closed, it opened as something else, and that closed, it opened as something else. The last go of it was Shelter.
Let's take a macro look at clubbing back then. Clubbing back then was a bit segregated.
Yes.
Explain that.
Well, the segregation started with when Gallery split. Gallery was in the same building with 10th floor. And the 10th floor opened up for the white shishis. And it was just them. The designers, Bill Blast, Halston, all those kind of shishi people wanted to be amongst themselves. Fire Island went, and some of them were Gallery kids. But once they all went, Gallery then became very black. And that sort of started the separation. Before that, it was everybody everywhere. The only difference then was a straight club was a straight club, a gay club was a gay club. The loft sort of mixed a little. Butch was all black, basically. But there was some gays thrown in, but it was mostly straight. And that's why when the garage opened up, Michael had 2 nights. Friday was straight, Saturday was gay. Saturday became more famous over the years, you know, calling it Gay Raj. And but Friday nights from day one was successful, right off the bat. Day one, packed for the whole 10 years. Saturday took a couple of years to catch on. You know, when Gallery closed, it got that crowd, but that was 200-300 people, 400 maybe. Garage was 2,000, 2,500 people. So it took a lot to try to fill it. You know.
Tell people about the vibe at the Gallery, the DJ.
Gallery was also fun. Nicky was wild. I always say to people, not deliberately, but Larry was sort of a what's the word?
Protege?
protege of Nicky and David. He was sort of like I said, if Nicky and David had a baby, he was Larry. Larry got deep like David. Didn't pay much attention to the mix. It wasn't about look at me, I can mix. It was about listen to what I'm playing. And he had the crazy energy of Nicky. I mean, Nicky would play the Diana Ross and perform behind the turntables. And Dave Mancuso was not that kind of a gay man. Larry was. So he was serious playing and fun playing, all in one. And it wasn't a copying of Nicky or a copying of David. It was what he loved about them both. Like me, when everybody goes, oh, do you copy Larry? No. But I was so influenced by what Larry did. I wanted to do to people on the dance floor what Larry did to me on the dance floor. If my hands were up and my shirt came up and my belly flopped, I didn't give a shit at the garage. Because if my hands were up, I was having a great time. And I didn't care. You know, some people would fix their shirt, oh, my belly showed. I didn't care. Larry made me not care. Larry made me be in that song. And when I didn't like a song and I walked off, he played it 10 times that night and said to me, you go down and dance to this song, it's good. I would go, yes, sir. You know, he made a lot of people believe. And I do the reunion parties. And
tell us about those. How did those start?
When Larry passed, Mel called me up and said, would you come with me? I said, yeah, I'll come with you. Where we going? He said, I have to go to the crematorium. I said, okay. We went there. We're sitting and a door opens up and they call Mel in to go settle the bill, whatever, the bill, page, sign papers, whatever. Another door opens up, a lady comes out and goes, Mr. Sharon? I said, he's in the office. Are you with him? Yes. She went, and she came over and she gave me a box. And I'm realizing, sitting by myself in this room with this box, I realized those are Larry's ashes. And I got very sad. I know a tear came down my face because it dripped. And I just looked and I said, I promise I'll never make them forget you. So I had a memorial party at Sound Factory Bar. And I had Joey Lanos play, T. Scott play. And I went and found Nicky Siano, who was working as a pharmacist in a pharmacy behind the counter. It said it in the back of a book. He put out a book and he said where he worked, which was right here on 1st Avenue and 9th Street. So I walked there he was, and I said, Nicky, I'm having a memorial and the friends of Larry play, would you play? He said, David, I don't even own a record anymore. I said, I'll lend you music. Would you do it for Larry? And he said, okay. And he played with T. Scott and Joey. And it was wonderful. And that actually brought Nicky back. Because then Francois was there with Danny and Joe and offered him to play a night at Body and Soul, which then made Nicky say, okay, I'll get music and start building a library again. And 1 year later, they said, you know, Larry's anniversary's coming up. Would you do something? So I said, okay, we'll call it Missing You. And the theme was Diana Ross playing Missing You for Marvin Gaye. Mm-hmm. When she made, ooh, I'm missing you. Mm-hmm. And then the second year, they said, are you going to do another? I said, no. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing another Larry Levan Missing You party. And a friend of mine said, well, why don't you just make it a garage reunion? Mm. I said, okay, I'll make it a garage reunion party. Mm-hmm. And when I made it the reunion party, I realized those three people that are my friends dancing to this song, those are the same three people that danced to that song the night Larry broke it at the garage for the first time. Mm. And one of the girls actually came over to me crying, and she said, David, I was dancing with Martha and Joyce the night we first heard this song, and I can't believe we're dancing to it again. The memories, it just filled my heart. And I said, well, I'm going to keep doing these reunion parties. Because it's not about having a successful party. It's about bringing these people together again that are all older. Mm-hmm. They're married. Some have children. Mm-hmm. They don't go out no more. But they all came together for this one party. They're all talking. They're showing pictures of their kids to each other. They're catching up. It's a real reunion. And it took the morbidness away from it. It's like a high school reunion. Then it was so successful, I did a garage Christmas, I did a garage Halloween, and then I said it's too much garage. And then Sound Factory Bar closed, and then I went overseas to Japan to do it. I went to Brazil and did it. I went to England and did it. So I did it for about 8 years, and then I stopped. And then I was playing with Little Louie at Vinyl, which was the old area. It was now Vinyl. Louie and I were playing together on Saturday. And Mel came into the booth. I was playing a Lolita Holloway song. And the place was going crazy. And he said, let's have a garage party. And I said, Mel, I just stopped them. And Louie said, yeah, let's do one. I said, no, it was 2000, the year 2000. I said, no, I don't want to do it. Oh, come on. So I said no. And I went out and sitting in the lounge. Louie took over now. He's playing. And in the lounge walks Joey Lanos, who I haven't seen for about a year or so. And he said, hi. He was like, Joey, oh my God. And he goes, what are we talking about? And I said, he wants me to do a garage party. And Joey said, I'm in. I said, well, if you're in, I'm in. And then we did it, me, Louie, and Joey. And we did 2000, we did 2001, we did it a year later. And actually, one of the parties was dedicated to Frankie Crockett because he had just died. And it was successful, and that started me and Joey doing them steadily. But I did it for 8 years before. And then I was totally retired, and I just did that once a year.
Tell us about Studio 54.
Studio 54 was a scandal. Michael Krennick, the bouncer at the front door, the doorman, whatever you want to call him, did not like Larry. For some reason, we don't know why. Whenever we'd go, he wouldn't let us in. Now, Richie Kazar would put Larry's name on the list. Whoever was playing, Michael Krennick didn't care. He wouldn't let us in. One night we went, and Larry arranged for Robert De Silva, who used to do lights at the garage. After studio, he'd come and do lights with Larry until the garage closed. He said, come meet me around the corner at the back door. So we went around the corner, we're at the back door waiting, and the door opens up, and it's Michael Krennick, and he went, bye-bye, and closed the door, and Larry and I were standing there like this. We don't know how he knew, but he knew. So we couldn't get in, and Larry was like, I'm getting in this fucking place if it kills me. So Larry wound up getting a job to play there. And it's like 8 o'clock, the place opens at 9. We go, Larry has a bag of records on his shoulder, and I'm carrying a little case of records. And we get to the door, Michael Krennick's there, goes, I'm not letting you in. And Larry said, if you don't let me in, there's going to be no music tonight because I'm playing. And Michael Krennick was like, argh. And instead of Larry being nice for the moment and letting go in, he gave an attitude to Michael. I said, Larry, he said I had to give it back to him. And I said, Larry, now, this was an opportunity to be nice.
Yeah.
And so we could come back. He said, nah, I'm not going to be nice to that evil bitch. That's Larry.
Wow.
Larry is so hard to explain.
Yes.
He was a big child. He was technically a genius. His mother used to tell me when he was a little kid, one time she went to work, she came home, and the TV set was taken apart in 100 pieces on the floor. She punished him, she spanked him, she sent him to bed without dinner. The next day she goes to work, she comes home, and the TV set was put together and playing perfectly. And that's when she realized Larry is maybe not good in school because he was bad, cutting school and all that, but he was mechanically and all that, he was gifted. The little devil.
Let's talk about fashion and nightlife.
Fashion? There was fashion. People would get all done up for the garage, especially in little get-ups and designer clothes and everything, and they always came with a change of clothes. Because after they pranced around for a while in their Gucci Poochies and Fiorucci's, they changed into sweats and little shorts and stuff and danced till they were dripping wet. And the garage actually had dressing rooms for them to change in lockers. I think there were lockers. I never went in the dressing room, so I don't know. But they carried their bags and they changed their clothes, and then they would check them. Yeah, that's what they did. They didn't have lockers. But fashion was a big part of it. And you knew groups. There were always groups of 6 to 7, like the Ganzas were a group of maybe 10 to 12, and David Ian would make an outfit for them. They would all come in red maybe one week, and red with accents of feathers, and then this other group would come Native American, and they'd have headdresses on and fringe, and another group would come in white fur, and they would they would compete in a friendly way with each other and dance right next to each other, and that would become also another little show in the show. You know, there were little, and the booth was another whole. The booth was Peyton Place, and nobody, unless you're my age, knows what Peyton Place was. Peyton Place was a TV show in the 60s and 70s. It was all scandal, sort of like Dynasty, always scandal. And the booth was its own little Peyton Place, we used to call it. There was always, who's she fooling around with? Who's he fooling around with? Is he fooling around with him? They're looking at each other. What's going on? There was always a story and a story and a story, you know. And in that story was several little stories. And so if you weren't interested in the music for the moment, because you might have been playing a selection that you didn't care for, like when he'd go into his whole little Rick James thing and everything, I'd go to the movie room. There was a movie being showed, or I'd go on the roof and throw shade at each other on the roof, you know, because the roof was a beautiful deck with a fountain. It was beautiful up there. And or in the crystal room to be gossiping, you know. Your ex is sitting over there with his new piece, so you see them throw shade at each other. It was fun. That's my point. It wasn't. It was everything. The people, the weekly people became family with each other. Every year there was a membership drive and new people came aboard, and you had to educate the new kids. When Larry would shut the music and the room would sing, the new people would look around like the music just went off and everybody's singing like, and they learned that's part of the night. This is either what you get into or you don't come back. You know, they trained, they observed, and it was a moving, it was like the dance floor itself took on its own, what's the word I want to think of? It was a living, breathing organism in itself. I can't, it's so hard to put into words.
I also heard that the dance floor would rock.
The dance floor was built, there were 2x4s or whatever they were put in a pattern, and the dance floor was laid on top, so it moved. Because if you dance on hard, after a couple hours your feet get tired. But there was a cushion, and the walls were on tracks. Because there was so much sound in it, they moved a little. Yeah.
Wow. Tell us about, you were in House of Xtravaganza.
Yes.
What is the House of Xtravaganza? What is a house? How did you become involved?
I sort of became friends with a couple of kids that were hanging at the garage. And one of these little groups that would come done in little doozy dress outfits and everything, and I would always look at them and go, that's a crazy little group. And one time I sort of had a little disagreement with one. And this other little boy that was part of them, but I didn't know he was part of them, he made nice because I could 86 you. So they didn't want that. So he made nice and introduced me to all of them. And then one time I'm walking home from the west side on Long 14 Streets where I live, And I see two of them on 6th Avenue and 14th Street. I'm like, what are you doing here? And he said, I live here. I said, well, I live on 14th Street, but all the way down. Oh, wow. And we talked, and we became friendly. And the Extravaganzas were having their first ball. And the balls at that time started at 6 in the morning Sunday. So they were all at the garage and getting ready to leave, like 5:30, to get to Harlem for the Grand March at 6 in the morning. And Angie Xtravaganza, the mother of the house, that's her, and the painting, the photo, she said, would you DJ the ball? And I said, I'm working, I can't. So I went up to Larry, I said, somebody just asked me if I would DJ a ball. He said, when? I said, now. He said, go ahead, go do it. I said, really? Because Larry was in a house 10 years before that. He was in the House of Wong with Duchess Wong, and he was friends with Paris Dupree before. He was in that world 10 years before. So I didn't even know all that. So he said, what house? I said, the House of Xtravaganza. He said, I don't know. I said, they're new. They're the first Latin house in the black world. He said, go ahead. He said, take a couple of records with you. You know, brand new records. So I took them and I got there and they had this little setup and they had this little boy that was getting ready to play records. And Angie said, he's going to play. And the little boy was there. I said, no, stay here with me. I need your help. I wanted to make I felt bad. I didn't know I was replacing somebody. And the boy said, well, how do they know you? I said, well, I work at the Paradise Garage. He went, he said, I'm next to the DJ from the Paradise Garage. I said, no, Larry Levan's the DJ. I just help. But oh my God, I'm honored. So I felt good that he wasn't hurting anymore. So I started playing. And I remember for one of the categories I put, let's go all the way, baby. And Larry was just playing the remix, the edit that Danny did. And it became big again all over because it was an older song. And I put that on, and the whole ballroom that was at the garage early that night that Larry played it 10 times, all jumped up out of their seats and started dancing. And the person walking the category stopped and looked around and like, you're supposed to be looking at me, but you're all dancing. And I said, I'm getting fired. But that was a lot of fun. So then at the end of the night, Angie came home and said, you are now an honorary Extravaganza. I said, okay. But I never in order to be, you had to walk a category. I never did, but I was an honorary Extravaganza. And I've been one, and this was probably early 80s.
Talk to me about DJ residencies.
Oh, they don't even have those anymore.
What happened to the, 2 questions. What happened, 3 questions. Tell people what a residency is. What happened to them? Is a residency required today to make a name?
Okay, a residency is somebody who had something steadily, weekly. Like if you played on Saturday at a club, you played every Saturday at that club. It was your home. It was your residency. Could have been 2 nights a week, could have been 1 night a week, but it was weekly. Nowadays that doesn't exist. Some people have a monthly party, which is not many. And nowadays you don't need a residency to be famous. You need to do studio work to be famous. That's what makes you famous now. The product you produce in the studio, in my opinion. If you're going to become a Calvin Harris or one of those other ones that make millions of dollars nowadays, which is sad because they don't even know the shoulders of who they're standing on. Some of them don't even know Larry Levan. They don't know Nicky Siano, David Mancuso, and they should, because David Mancuso was the first domino, and all the other dominoes fell because of him. Larry Levan, the first DJ to travel. Larry Levan, one of the first DJs to remix. One of the first, not the first, one of them. But those successful DJs that did those remixes and productions that kept getting more work allowed the DJs to go in the studio and make their own project. Larry was the first one to have his own label, Peach Boy Records on Island. First on West End, then on Island. So these DJs now are standing on those people's shoulders, and they don't even know the history, and that's so sad. But that's why I fought to change King Street to Larry Levan Way.
What happened with that?
Well, just a year before, when we were putting it all together, we had to get all kinds of permission from the city mayor, the deputy mayor, the fire department, the police department, the city council. It was a whole thing, because you're going to close the street down. Not only do you need permission from the mayor's office, the neighborhood association has to agree to it. The fire department needs to know they can't drive a fire truck down the block if they have to. It'll be closed. The police department has to set up. It's a whole thing that you don't think of. And we couldn't get it together until Red Bull came to us. And by the time Red Bull came to us and had the power, of course, of who they are, to put it all together legally, the city had just changed the rule of making ways. Like, it was always named like Larry Levan Way, or this one Way. They stopped giving it to people because almost all of Midtown was named after a Broadway star or something. And they were only doing it now after somebody, a hero. Like a fireman who went into a burning building and died would get a street named after him. Or something like that. They weren't just giving it, they had just stopped months, maybe a year before. So to fight to give Larry Levan Way became 10 times harder. And Red Bull was working on it. And then the new mayor came in. It just sort of fell to the waistline. Isn't that sad? If we would have gotten it together a year before, we would have, because they don't change. King Street would always be King Street, but a sign above it would have said Larry Levan Way. And I wanted it to be that, because I always said, imagine a little kid walking with his parents and saying, why does that have two names? Larry Levan Way and King Street, and maybe the father saying, Google. Find out why, and then they would realize the club was open to everyone. Everyone was free to be who they were, and it's a nice little story and a little educational moment. But it never happened. It might still happen. The paperwork is still there, but like I said, now they give it to like down on the Lower East Side, a little young girl that was hit by a car and killed. They named the street after the little girl. Things like that. A police guy that got killed in the line of duty, a street named after him. No more like Al Joe, no more celebrity. Or
wow.
Because they said at that rate, every single street in New York will have another name. So they kiboshed it.
Talk to us about musical genres.
I'm so bad at that. I mean, Larry hated the word house music. He said, because house music came from Chicago. It was music that came out of warehouse. It was a bunch of DJs or music people that hung out at the warehouse that wanted to make music and made music in their basements, in their garages, and brought it to Frankie. Frankie played a lot of it, and Frankie worked on a lot of it, and that was house music. And then suddenly, after warehouse closed, Frankie moved to New York, and suddenly everything started to be under the umbrella of house music. There was Latin house, there was hip hop house, and it was like, well, if you're gonna call something under a genre, then it should really all be called loft music. Because Frankie Knuckles became a DJ because of the loft. Larry became a DJ, then there was garage music. But Larry became a DJ because of David. Nicky became a DJ because of David. So that whole underground sound came from the loft. So if you're going to make an umbrella, and all music is going to sort of now fit under the umbrella, you're calling it house music. House music was what it was. And it was great. But that sort of, I think because it had a name, house, it just caught on. And Larry was like, I play garage music, I don't play house music. And he said, I don't even play garage music, I play music. Oh, black music is house music. No, black music is R&B. Then R&B sort of became not really hip hop. It sort of became what Mary J. Blige did and stuff. And it was every black singer was R&B. You know, Temptations was R&B. The Tramps were R&B. You know, Lionel Richie was R&B. But then, you know, so genres, good music is good music. That's what David Mancuso always said. That's what Larry always said. I get caught up in genres. I don't really know the difference. It's like, where does one neighborhood end and another neighborhood begins on that particular corner? But if you cross the street to the other corner, it's another neighborhood. But it's right there. It's crossroad streets. That street is Soho. That street is Little Italy. What are you, crazy? You know? And some music crosses like that.
Explain to people the difference between an underground club and a regular club.
Well, a regular club they used to call 9 to 5, 9 to 4. You know, you didn't need a membership. You just paid to get in. That was a regular club. No guest list, no mailing list, no membership card, nothing. A private club, our underground club, was usually word of mouth. Like Garage, the 1 or 2 times Frankie Crocker talked about it on the radio, Michael Brody would call him and say, stop. You know, because when you did, people that listened to Frank Crocker on BLS showed up outside. And Michael was like, I don't want bridge and tunnel. I don't want someone coming in their Halston, Gucci, and Pucci clothes. You know, that's not what this is. A dance club. You don't come. It's not. You don't come to get dressed and walk around look pretty. This is where you're gonna come and your blowout hair is gonna frizz up and your makeup is gonna run down your cheeks. Matter of fact, don't even wear makeup. It was a hardcore dance club, and that's what you know. And it wasn't cruisy, even on the gay nights. Don't come here to cruise. Go cruising 6 nights a week. Come here to dance. You know, I did pretty good though. I got a few phone numbers for the week. No, but you really, you know, especially if you worked all week, you wanted your dance.
Yeah.
You know, there were plenty of little bars here and there that you could have went for a couple hours during the week. You wanted. That's why I never thought Tuesday at Tracks would work. It was a Tuesday, but it did.
Wow.
And a whole generation got fired for not working on Wednesday.
What happened to New York?
It died.
Why?
Rent. If you walk along First Avenue from like Houston Street to maybe 42nd Street, every block would have still First Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, Lexington. Even on the west side, you'll find 1, 2, 3, 4 empty stores. Or on each and every block from Houston Street to 42nd Street, and even above, but let's just stop at 42nd. So that's 100, could be 100 stores on each avenue, because the rents are so high, people can't pay them. And those buildings get subsidized tax time because their property stays empty. So the landlord don't care, it stays empty. He won't lower the rent just to put a business in. And that stopped clubs. Stop clubs. And then at times we had a mayor that here and there that wanted them gone. Bloomberg wanted them gone. Koch wanted them gone. This is going back a long time. Koch started it, but Bloomberg really put the nail in the coffin.
Giuliani as well.
You know, get rid of them. And then they went to Brooklyn. And they went to Brooklyn, different sections at a time, and built the neighborhood up. And as soon as the neighborhood was built up, and the hipsters moved in, they wanted the clubs gone. So the clubs then all started to like migrate to another little industrial area. And then the industrial area, they took some of the old buildings and made co-ops. And the lower floor buildings were clubs. And then as the co-ops got prettier and more expensive, they wanted the clubs out. And then they moved to another area. So they're playing hot potato as they move all around, but Brooklyn's huge. And then Brooklyn borderlines Queens. And there's all kinds of warehouses that were factories, that were bus terminals, that were truck parking garages. So there's hundreds of spaces still sitting there empty. There could be clubs for the next 30 years if somebody's willing to go in and redo them. But all the action's in Brooklyn.
Do you still go clubbing today?
No.
Why?
Because I'm old, and being a DJ, I go in to have fun, and while I'm dancing I say, why did he just play that? Or why did he play that there? Like, it would have been so much better if he played the break and then played the song. And then I'm saying, why am I critiquing somebody? And I'm not really critiquing, it's in my mind what I would do if I was playing. And then I'm not dancing because I'm thinking. And I don't want to be thinking, I want to just be dancing. And I realize I can't separate who I am from what I'm doing. And I'm not crazy about the music that's around nowadays. And then I flash back on my father when I was playing, when I was a little kid and my sister was playing the Beatles and I was playing the Four Seasons, and my father would go, this music is terrible. Now if you played Perry Como and Frank Sinatra, and we go, oh. Everybody has their generation. And I'm close to 70 and my generation's passed. My generation, and they were young, great DJs. And if everybody who's 70 still plays records, these young DJs can't get a foot in the door. It's time to move on, in my opinion. And I'm sour. And I can't hear no more, Larry, thank you for what you did to me. No, because there's some really young, great DJs out there. It's like when you're driving and you're a driver and you're sitting in the passenger seat and the other person's talking and not watching and you're pressing down and you realize I don't have a brake. You can't help wanting to, he's going too fast and taking the turns fast, and you go to brake and you realize I don't have a brake, but you're a driver. And you say, ooh, you know. It's the same thing when you're a DJ and you go and somebody's playing, you can't help but, you know, I'm not being a snob. It's just part of what it is. Maybe I am a little snob.
Do you still take DJ bookings?
No.
You don't?
I get offered still. Not as much as I used to. Maybe 2 or 3 times a year I get asked. But I just do the reunion.
You're done with that?
Yeah. I made a promise to Larry, and if you think about it, Larry's name and the garage name is still very big around the world. So I felt like I kept my promise of not making them forget him. You know, whether I'm totally responsible for it or not, I still contributed to keeping it out there. You know, and that's my little personal thing. But I think it's getting very close to me saying good night and thank you. Yeah. Even though it's just once a year, it's everybody that was coming to the reunions around my age, and you sort of reach a point, you know, what are they going to come in on walkers? 80 years old, you're going to want them to walk it? No. Sometimes things just, the progression, just naturally, even though younger people have been coming, I don't have the energy.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that would help you?
I think you asked me everything and more. I wouldn't say you were nosy, but you did your job. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say anything that might have offended anyone.
No, it's just fantastic.
I'm a blabber. Blah, 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 blah.
If you were to design the perfect club today,
I don't even know what that looks like anymore. I don't even know what that looks like anymore. Because when I do parties at clubs, we go in and we beef up the sound and everything, and I don't think these young kids know the difference between true perfection quality sound and just loud. You know, back in those days when you had Bonds and you had Studio and you had Palladium and you had Garage and you had all these great sound systems of Richard Long, and you knew good sound, and when you went to a place that didn't, that was the first thing talked about. Oh, the sound is terrible. Now I go into some of these clubs, we go to look at the size of the space and everything, interested in doing the reunion there, and they put on the sound system, and I go, oh my God. It goes, oh, and they go, oh, it gets much louder. Well, I don't care about loud, I care about good. I want to hear what they're saying when they're singing. You know, and they don't really know from it, and they don't acoustically treat the room. And a lot of these places, like I said, are old warehouses. They're all concrete, or they're all brick with concrete floors. And because they're so huge, they don't put wood floors down anymore because it's a fortune. So it's concrete bouncing into the ceiling that's concrete, bouncing into the wall that's concrete, and it turns into a hallway. Echoing, and it just, and they put these PA sound systems in, and it sounds so bad. And these young kids with the music that they're playing today, they just dance and they don't know, or they don't care, or their drugs are so fabulous it doesn't matter. I don't know what the actual answer is. I really don't know what the actual answer is, and we fuss. Joey and I go in, and especially Joey used to maintain the garage sound system. We're fussy, and it's really hard because you go in and you have to rent $5,000 worth of extra sound, and some clubs won't even let you bring extra sound in.
What?
Yeah, they'll go, we'll pay for it. No. Some won't. Some will let you. Some won't.
Wow.
So when you find a club that has good sound, it's like you're amazed.
Wow.
But either the clubs are too small or they're too big.
Mm-hmm.
There's like no decent middle-sized club anymore that I know of.